couple of clarifications. One, your spacewalk, where you had your transformational experience.
Well, that's coming back home after the flight.
That was after. Was that? But did you make a spacewalk in Gemini?
Well, not a spacewalk, but no, not in Gemini. Only in the Apollo program on the moon. But I was backup on other flights. Yes. My only flight was the Apollo.
But which flight was it that you had your transformational experience?
Well, I was returning from Apollo.
Returning from Apollo.
After my work was done on the surface, and I had time to relax and kind of look out the window, be a tourist,
yes,
and look at the heavens pass by as we rotated. See, we were rotating to keep thermal balance on the spacecraft.
Yes.
So that allowed the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and a 360-degree panorama of the stars to appear in the spacecraft window every 2 minutes. That's pretty wild experience.
All of us here, us Earthlings, can only dream of something like that. May I ask you, were you raised in a faith? Were you raised in a traditional faith of any sort when you grew up? Were you in a religion?
Oh yes, I grew up as a Baptist. My mother and grandmother were rather ardent in their religion.
Okay, and if Steve's fondest wish comes true and you make news tomorrow, the second question that reporters will ask you is something like, do you yourself have any first-hand knowledge about Roswell or the other high-profile crashes that have been part of the lore here for years, other than what folks at these conferences might be exposed to?
No, my answer is I have no first-hand experience, but I'm very familiar and have read most of the books of the investigators, many of whom were at this conference, over the years, and I did become quite interested in it after my space flight when what I call the old-timers came to me with their stories, and so I have followed all the UFO phenomena, and aliens have not been my primary area of investigation, but I'm quite knowledgeable in what the fine research people who have done over the last several decades have produced in the way of literature for this.
So let's be clear. You are persuaded that we are being visited or interacted with by extraterrestrials routinely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not the least of which is that John Mack was a very close friend and colleague before he passed on, and he and I we were at a private conference together set up by one of my board members at Analytics, investigating talking about how do we proceed with all of this. So I knew John's work quite well, and even though he did not in his lifetime pass on the veracity of what his patients or his subject of his investigation, he did pass on the fact that these were good, solid people, not crackpots, that were telling their stories of abduction and interaction with the alien presence.
Yes, sir. I was involved with the first program that funded John's work.
Okay, so,
and so
you know how sincere he was.
Yes, I know him, and we all miss him. Final thing, not to inject negativity or darkness, but the question is, in the field of ufology, as it's called, there are always controversies within controversies.
Yes, correct.
And there's two questions. One, if it's real, it has a politics when you deal with the interactions. And so once you get past the is it real question where you are, then you're looking at intentionality, at what is happening, what influences, and if there's more than one, there's a political dimension.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that at all?
No, I can't. In the power, all I can say is I know the lore, I know various factions, I know what's going on, I know that the disinformation and misinformation has been deliberate, and the notion of keeping the field muddy and closed has been a prime objective of some, and opening it up has been a prime objective of others. And hopefully the opening it up is going to succeed here.
The also part of the philosophical paranoia that's endemic to this is the question of they with capital T. The question I have is when you say disinformation and whatever, and I interviewed you last year and you gave me your opinion, which I won't share here, about the whole Mars thing, the Mars culture thing of Richard Hoagland and others. But how do you think those kind of disputes over catechism impact the larger transformational issue culturally that you are advocating by the acknowledgement of the ET involvement and presence on Earth?
Well, I think that's just our human propensity to have our own points of view and to espouse those points of view. I will illustrate it by the issue of some, Bart Seibel, to name one, who have been prominent in the notion we never went to the moon. And that man with false credentials, press credentials, found his way into my home, and after 5 minutes of listening to him start his questions, I immediately realized who he was, booted him in the fanny, and threw him out of my house. He encountered Buzz Aldrin on the streets of Los Angeles the following week, who poked him in the nose. And the whole point of that was we humans do that. Whether we want 15 minutes of fame or whatever it is we're after, trying to propagate our own point of view, and there's almost as many points of view as there are humans to do it. So that is a part of our problem as scientists, because I consider science the ultimate truth finder in our modern world, and we do it through postulating and then finding experiments that will validate our postulate, and then finding anomalies to the experiment to have to repostulate again. That's what we're all about. And so I don't find that any, I don't find that anomalous itself. That's the way we operate. And that includes the politics, that includes the fact that science and scientists come up with different theories and different approaches, and we have to progress slowly but surely through unwinding all of this as we go forward. And we're at a very crucial time, I think, in human history right now. But it's been going on like this forever.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Follow-up clarification, Dr. Mitchell. Let me be sure I know your point on this. Some of the people that have come to you, the old guard and everything else that you've talked to, let's be clear, that have given you very strong, you feel, confirmatory persuasion. Some of these people are of high-ranking station with the government and the military, am I not right?
They have been, yes.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Mitchell, I want to preface my question with a remark. I think no one in this room will disagree with me in the fact that you're probably one of the most knowledgeable, respected individuals in the world.
Okay.
That being said, I could probably stand up here for hours and hours and hours and ask you questions that are burning in my mind. So I thought, well, what's the one thing I could ask him that would be perhaps interesting to the audience if you knew the answer? And so I became very selfish, and I thought to myself, well, my gosh, there's something I'd really like